Okay, updates. I'm going to be here for a couple more weeks, and the setting where I do videos will drastically change. And but I want to keep you updated on what God is doing in ministry for me, because this is going to be important as to faith, people believing in faith and actually getting credibility for what God is doing in my life. Now, I told you just the other day that God used the word "now" with me, and the Lord said that now He can begin to build me, is what He said. Well, He didn't say begin. He says now I can build upon you. That's what He said. And He showed me the place where I'm living and stuff like that. And of course, you know, we're going to make some sacrifices here to actually get into the place. But this is what I want to talk about, rather than just that. God establishing people, places, and things. And when God has chosen a person, like when God chose the Apostle Paul, it says right here, Romans 1:1, it says, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated into the gospel. God does that with all of us. He separates us into the gospel. The Lord has torn me loose from the world, and He has given me a place that's easier to deal with. Apostle Paul, he talked about, you know, things that he was loose from and the things he had respect for, and there was a high indication there that Paul didn't even have a house, but he stayed with people that he went with. And eventually, this is more than likely what I'm going to do. God's going to move us into this. I'm not really wanting to buy a bunch of stuff down here. You see a lot of evangelists that do that kind of thing. They build mansions for themselves here. Man, you know, I really don't want that. I want a mansion in heaven. That's the place we're supposed to build our permanent mansions. And even though we have an adequate house down here, that should be all that we're looking for. Lester Summerall has my high regards in that, because Lester had a very humble setting home, just a normal house. You'd be going down the street, look to the left, you see Lester's house, you wouldn't know which house it was. Lester owned 12 television stations. He could own the whole block if he'd have wanted to, you know. But and that's what I want to keep myself. God is still using Lester. People like that, their credibility never run out in God, you know, for God to use them. His TV shows where he taught, his teaching, are what's more than anything else on that channel, you know. And that's the setting that I want to live in, and be credible for God, so that the Lord can continue to use me. Because I know when we begin to build ourselves up, God's credibility begins to dwindle down in us. God can't use us like He wants to. Now, He still will. Look at the life of Samson. God used him incredible when he stayed in Israel, when he judged the people. That's what he was there for. And truthfully, the biggest scene to be known was when he got out and got himself into trouble and made a name for himself among the strange people, but the Philistines. But that wasn't really what he was called to do. He was his credibility for judging Israel and for doing the right thing before God, when Israel prospered and they learned the things of God, and they actually grew while he was sitting in the seat of judgment. And when we dwindle away, but this is where I'm at now. This is what I'm doing, and we're just trusting in the Lord to get us through to the place where we need to be, and waiting for His anointing. Now, that's what I want to tell you that's coming next. God has told me shortly there's a strong anointing coming in my life. Now, for those of you who want to look at this, there's there's probably no, what, 200 videos on here. 90% of them have 1 or 2 views. Go look at them. But now, as soon as God's anointing comes, it's different. All of a sudden, people write down the things you say. It's credible. You're credible to them. All of a sudden, that's because of God's anointing. And I want people to see that. I want to see what happens when God moves in. That's one of the excuse me. That's one of the biggest things that I want to try to accomplish on here. Besides teaching.